Non-Americans love and respect America because of its values. We all want the war to end, but we don't want Ukraine to surrender, because you're not only abandoning Ukraine, you're actually abandoning America's largest trading partner, the EU. I actually agree with JD Vance's speech at the Munich conference. I do think that in Europe, freedom of speech is under attack. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian. And the irony is that Trump himself was an entertainer. If a scientist takes a jibe at Zelensky for being a comedian, then it makes sense. But if you're an entertainer yourself and you're having a go at Zelensky for being another entertainer, that just doesn't make sense. Why did Churchill not say that, oh, you know what, let's just make peace at Czechoslovakia? Oh, Poland, okay, let them have Poland. If Churchill and Roosevelt had said what Donald Trump is saying today, the whole of Europe would have been under Nazi occupation today. And this tiny little island we call Britain, that would have been on its own next to a very hostile continent. All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan. I think if I had recorded this video yesterday, then it probably would have been my most depressing video ever. But I'm glad that I didn't record this video yesterday, because anyone who goes through my Twitter timeline would know that how angry I was at the current development in the Russia-Ukraine conflict vis-a-vis Trump's comments. Now, obviously, most of you would know that I actually like Donald Trump. I hate wokeism. I hate the woke mind virus. I want Trump to secure his borders. I want Trump to make America great again. But there is a reason behind that. The reason behind why people who are non-Americans, why do they want a strong America? We want strong America because America, at least for the last 75 years, has been consistently leading the free world in protecting and safeguarding these values of free speech, values of democracy, values of holding big powers to account and prohibiting them from invading smaller democracies that want to join the Western camp. That's why people like me want America to do well. And with that, I support Doge. I want Elon Musk to end this corruption in American bureaucracy and free up hundreds of billions of dollars that he's telling us that are being siphoned off or are being lost to corruption or inaptitude. So I support all of that. Now, before the last American presidential election, I was supporting Trump, and I think I still do support him. But there was one fear that he might throw Ukraine under the bus. But again, when you like someone, you tend to look at the good things and you tend to ignore things that you may not like. And I think I genuinely believe that when Trump assumes office, then he would be given credible intel, which will tell him that it's Putin who's the aggressor here. It's Putin who invaded Georgia, who invaded Chechnya, who took Crimea by force in 2014. There was no Zelensky in sight back then. No one was talking about including Ukraine into NATO. There have always been talks, but there was no serious groundwork. How do we know that? Because when Crimea was invaded in 2014, Ukraine was still not a part of NATO until 2022, and there was no chance of Ukraine joining NATO. So we've seen Putin's lies multiply over time. How he first wanted to decapitate the Ukrainian leadership and had sent assassination squads for Zelensky. Zelensky had an opportunity to flee Ukraine, like the Afghan president Ashraf Ghani, but he didn't flee. He said, I don't need a ride, I need weapons. This is very similar to Churchill's statement that give us the tools and we'll finish the job. And that's all Ukraine is asking for. If Ukraine was a Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi-style dictatorship, then of course, to hell with them. I don't care. But I wanted to say that non-Americans love and respect America because of its values. I know most of you probably wouldn't like it, but I still would refer to that speech that Obama gave, I think probably 2011, 12 or 13. That's roughly the time when I actually fell in love with America, because before that, I also saw America as an expansionist power, like any other superpower from the past, which just goes into countries and invades them and installs its puppet governments and exploit their resources. I also used to think that. But then I remember Obama's speech. I think he gave that in 2012 or 13 or something like that, where he said, America's strength is not its military power. It's not even its economic power. The strength of its values. That's the real strength. And then I started looking into it. I read a lot of books on American Civil War, American history, and America through the 19th and 20th centuries, and especially America's role in the Second World War. I read all of that. And the more I read American history, the more I fell in love with America. That's not to say America is perfect, but as countries go, no other country in history has done more for its ideological allies than any other empire. No one's ever done that. Superpowers of the past have always had this client based relationship with its allies where that, okay, you do this, we'll do that. Now, America also benefited enormously from this alliance with the Europeans in exchange for taking over their security. Now, that's another lie that's been constantly peddled that, oh, we don't want to be suckers. Let me remind you that after the Second World War, Europe's economy was in tatters. It was destroyed. America launched this Marshall Program. And I think the UK was still paying until 2002 or 2003, which is fine. The UK and Europe survived thanks to American support. But in exchange, they introduced Bretton Woods Standard, which made the American dollar the global currency. In exchange for looking after Europe, America had this unwavering, undying, blind support of European democracies, like-minded democracies. They had similar values, that we should have free speech, we should have all of these things. And again, I'm not saying Europe is perfect. I actually agree with J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich conference. Someone who keeps an eye on what's happening in Britain, I do think that in Europe, freedom of speech is under attack. But that doesn't mean that you overnight split your alliances. This is Putin and Xi Jinping's wet dream, that America is abandoning Ukraine or this NATO alliance breaks up. Let me share this post by President Trump, which I'm sorry to say is retarded. There's so many lies in that, and I'll debunk them one by one if I have time. So this is what Donald Trump said. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian. Come on, what is this? Is this a high school feud between two teenage boys? What is it? A modestly successful comedian. Okay, all right, okay, Mr. President. And the irony is that Trump himself was an entertainer. If a scientist takes a jibe at Zelensky for being a comedian, then it makes sense. But if you're an entertainer yourself and you're having a go at Zelensky for being another entertainer, that just doesn't make sense. But again, Trump has a massive ego. Sometimes he can act like a teenage boy. That's not what the world expects from the leader of the free world. But anyway, guess what? Volodymyr Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won. He did not. There is absolutely not a single shred of evidence that Zelensky talked the United States of America to go to war with Russia. No, Putin invaded Ukraine. That's a fact as established as there are three sexes, male, female, and intersex. But Trump, when he wants to strong arm someone, he just says anything. And unfortunately, he has so many sycophants who would just say whatever he says and they would beat the drum. But as I said, if I had recorded this video yesterday, it would have been a lot more critical and a lot more depressing. But I have seen a lot of Republican voices for the first time on this issue, on any issue. They're actually standing up to Trump and they are pushing back. And a part of me still believes that Trump actually would not abandon Ukraine, and I'll explain my reasons. But let's just go through this tweet first. Without the US and Trump will never be able to settle. That's true. Zelensky or Ukraine or Europe can't afford to lose America. America has the muscle. America has the economic might. America has the sway as a peacemaker. America holds a lot of cards, but not all. And I'll explain that to you as well. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe. That's a lie. There's no number says $350 billion. The number is close to just under $200 billion. And Europe has spent about $210 billion. This number that America has spent $200 billion more than Europe, it's an absolute fantasy. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization in that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? We have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. And again, I think this is the problem with Trump. Trump was criticized in his first term that he sees that international relationships can be formed on the basis of your likings and dislikings of the leader. That may be true in the case of dictatorships, that Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin can shake hands and Kim Jong-un can send 20,000 North Korean troops without consulting with his ministers or anyone. That's how it can work in dictatorships. But in democracies, and let alone a complex and a big democracy as the United States, it's a lot more complex than that. Trump tried to get cozy with Kim Jong-un back in 2019, and then he just dropped it like a hot potato because it didn't work out, because that's not how it works. Trump is just mad at Zelensky for not digging up dirt on Hunter Biden in 2019. That is also a very unrealistic and stupid demand of Trump, because how could Zelensky get involved in the internal politics of the United States? Let's just say if Zelensky had dug up dirt on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden had still won the election, Zelensky would have been fucked. So Zelensky just stayed out of it. And that obviously resulted in Trump's impeachment, and Trump obviously doesn't like Zelensky. But then Trump also holds this massive grudge against Sleepy Joe. And I get it. I get it. Joe Biden persecuted Trump and his family. But Trump he's the leader of the free world. He's the president of the world's most important democracy. Surely at some point you can let bygones be bygones. Because it's not just between Trump and Biden. It's the lives of millions of Ukrainians at stake. Their very survival is at stake here. But Trump's personal feuds are more important to Trump than other people. For example, now he's saying, oh, Zelensky, you better get on the negotiating table, otherwise you won't have much of a country left. I know that's not what Trump actually means, because Trump's primary goal is to stop the killing. He said it in the press conference, I don't care who gets what, but I just want the killings to stop. And I actually buy that argument. I genuinely buy that. I don't think there's a nefarious purpose. I'm not like one of those people who just deliberately want to pick holes in everything that Trump says. I think he genuinely wants to stop it. But in the meantime, he wants to get something out of that too. He wants to look like this massive peacemaker. He wants to secure these $500 billion worth of Ukrainian minerals, which Zelensky put a hold on it, and it perfectly makes sense. If you want my minerals, but then you have to give me something, which is push Russia out of Ukraine. That's a pretty big sum. So that's why Trump is pissed at him, because number one, he didn't dig up dirt on Hunter Biden. And now he sent his finance minister, and Zelensky said, sorry, we have to go through it. We'll get back to you. And I think that irked Donald Trump, and that's why he's acting out. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. It's not missing. That's not what Zelensky said. Zelensky said, we only got $75 billion. What happened to the rest of the $125 billion? That's because most of this American money, it went straight to American weapons manufacturers. And I think that's Doge's job to look for any corruption in there. I'm sure when you're dealing with $125 billion, some person would have said, $1 billion here and there, nobody would notice. But that's the corruption that we have in America. We have much worse corruption in Russia, and also we have corruption in Ukraine. But that doesn't mean that you have to throw Ukraine and Ukrainians under the bus, who have sacrificed 500,000 men to keep their sovereignty alive. We all want the war to end, but we don't want Ukraine to surrender, because you're not only abandoning Ukraine, you're actually abandoning America's largest trading partner, the EU. Okay, there you go. So that's another lie. He refuses to have elections. He's very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. This is just a lie. They have a constitution which says that during wartime, you can't hold elections. Have a listen to this.
A couple of things. Yeah, Zelensky's polling as of February this month is 57% favorable. It was 52 in December. It was in the 90s in 22 when the war started. But obviously, he got very favorable ratings. Look at the constitution that Ukraine has prohibits elections when you declare martial law because of a state of war takes place. And obviously, the incumbent who is trying to run a war to be involved in an election and bringing people together in primaries and other elections puts the people at risk. There's two other parts of that martial law. If you're 18 to 60 years of age and a male, you can't leave the country. And also they're curbing civil liberties, particularly freedom of movement, by curfews in the contested areas. So that the fact that their constitution is driving this, the parliament, bipartisan support for all the extensions they've had to the martial law. So they are acting democratically, in my judgment, and abiding by their constitution. And also the parliament is supporting it, which represents the people throughout the country. These are democratic actions taking place in a democratic country. I don't believe we should try and push elections on Zelensky during the middle of this war. I think if there is a peace agreement, I think Zelensky and others and the people themselves will demand an election, and it would likely take place assuming the peace agreement has some real legs to it.
Okay.
Let me show you what Zelensky's opposition is saying. This woman is a sitting MP in Ukrainian parliament, and she does not belong to Zelensky's party. She's in the opposition. Listen to her.
First of all, does your president speak for the country, do you think? Does he express Ukrainian irritation at what Donald Trump's coming out with?
Absolutely. When it comes to the analysis of foreign policies, Ukraine has always had one voice. And I'm an opposition MP, as you very well know, and still we are all speaking up in one voice saying that what America today proposes for Ukraine is absolutely unacceptable.
And would you describe him as a dictator, or are you living in martial law?
We are living in martial law because actually Russia has attacked Ukraine in 2014 and then escalated that very aggression to an all-out war. So we in Ukraine have no choice but to live in martial law in order to protect ourselves. But is President Zelensky a dictator? No. He is a president of a free democratic country which is fighting for its survival.
And this is just only one MP. The leader of the opposition has come out and they've said, we don't want election. And why do they not want election? First of all, there's a constitutional requirement. I know Trump and a lot of these people are saying, we held elections during the Civil War and during the Second World War. First of all, during the Second World War, how much of America was under occupation? Was there a martial law in place? No. Oh, the UK held election. They did not have election, and they were meant to have election in 1945, but again, they pushed it back until the war was over. So there is so much disinformation being peddled. I understand that why Trump is doing that, because this is Trump's style. He likes to bully people. He likes to twist their arms. He likes to do this stuff. But you can't really blame Zelensky when he said, we respect President Trump because we respect America, because America has helped Ukraine a lot. No one's taking that away from America. I'm telling you, nobody sees you as suckers. People see America as the leader of the free world, and they look to America for leadership. In Australia, yeah, we are a tiny country. We're a huge landmass, but we are a tiny country of only 25 million people. In a hypothetical scenario, if China were to attack us, we would want America to come to our rescue. That doesn't mean that we would want American soldiers to die. Yeah, we will be the first one at the front lines. But we would want America to help us, give cutting-edge technology, give us weapons. And that's why I just don't understand all these non-Americans who are towing this line, especially in Britain and in other parts of Europe, who are saying, oh, yeah, Ukraine doesn't concern. What? It can make sense if an American says that because they have a big, beautiful ocean in between them. But you idiots, these Brits who are going after Keir Starmer, who I actually support on this issue alone, why are you putting British boots on the ground as a peacekeeping force when we don't have any American support? And that's a genuine concern. But if America totally abandons Ukraine and Europe, then you think that little English channel is going to save you? Yes, they might not be able to invade you like Hitler didn't want to invade you. Why did Churchill not say that, oh, you know what, let's just make peace at Czechoslovakia? Oh, Poland, okay, let them have Poland. If Churchill and Roosevelt had said what Donald Trump is saying today, the whole of Europe would have been under Nazi occupation today. And this tiny little island we call Britain, that would have been on its own next to a very hostile continent. There's another question to you. Why is it that the closer you are to the Russian border, the more you spend on your defense? Poland is spending 5%. I think they're going to go up to 6%. The Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, I think they're spending about 5% and they want to spend more. Why are they spending more? Because they know they're next on the chopping block. And Trump is a transactional figure. This is my biggest criticism of Trump. Trump is not an ideologue. He doesn't follow any ideology. I was listening to this guy on Russian state TV. They were saying, yeah, look, Trump, he doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about human rights. He cares about what's good for him. And then he looks for what's good for America. I'm sorry, that's not the America world respects. I understand the genuine grievances. Europe should foot the bill. Europe should pay more. Europe should increase its defense budget. But that doesn't mean that you can expect them to do this overnight when they're also going through cost of living crisis and they need planning. They need 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And you're right, Biden should have forced them. We had 3 years to prepare. And Europe didn't prepare. And they knew that Trump might come and Trump might throw Ukraine under the bus. I'm not letting the European leaders off the hook here, but there's a sensible way of doing it. But I just see the irony of it. This meme perfectly encapsulates the current scenario. Look at this. President Trump to Obama, you're a dictator. Biden, you're a dictator. Zelensky, you're a dictator. Putin, you're a champion. Xi Jinping, you're a great guy. Kim Jong-un, you're a great guy. He doesn't call out real dictators. Now, there's a skeptical way of looking at it. Some people say that because Trump has made these kind of comments, which kind of scares a lot of people like us who follow, who love and respect and cherish the international rules-based order, which America created and championed, that you don't go in and gobble up smaller democracies or smaller countries. But Trump has said, I'll take the Panama Canal, I'll take Greenland. Now, a lot of us, again, our bias comes in because we want America to be strong. We want America to be great again. But we ignore that. Yeah, maybe he's just doing it just to rattle them. I still believe maybe, it's not believe, maybe it's more of a hope than belief, but I guess time will tell. Maybe that explains why Trump likes people like Putin or Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un. Because stronger powers should be able to gobble up territories, and we are a strong power too. So we deserve Greenland too. This issue of Greenland is so old. Why did Truman not invade Greenland? During the Second World War, a very strong argument was being made for the acquisition of Greenland, but they dropped it. And the morality that we had back in the 40s was much different from the morality that America had or the world has today. Harry Truman dropped 2 nukes on Japan, and I don't criticize him for that. I think it was probably the best way to end the war and save lives. But even someone who could drop nukes and kill tens of thousands of people did not think about invading or annexing Greenland because American values get in the way. How could America champion democracy and liberty and speak against British and French colonialism, but at the same time go and colonize other territories or other smaller countries? It's the American values that make America great. I genuinely believe that. But the problem with Trump is that Trump is not an ideologue. I don't think he respects these values. If he could become a president for the 3rd term, I think he will. I think he even said that. Oh, they're looking for it. If they find something in the Constitution, then he might do it. I don't know. But it's very discouraging to see the leader of the free world speaking like this. I just find it fascinating that how could a mad tyrant who's never held free and fair elections, he throws his opponents out of high-rise windows. He forces them to drink tea laced with radioactive material. He kills his political opponents, not only in Russia, but outside of Russia too. He has already sacrificed 700,000 of his own soldiers, according to Donald Trump himself. And according to Donald Trump himself, he said that this is no way to run a country. I just don't understand how Trump can not say anything about him. Now, I get it. They're saying that he's trying to soften him up. He's trying to charm him because he's the belligerent here and he wants to get him on the negotiating table. J.D. Vance has come out and said that had Putin played tough, then everything was on the cards. We would have armed Ukraine to the teeth. Even NATO boots would have been on Ukrainian ground. But that didn't happen because Putin played another masterful, deceitful stroke by convincing Trump that he is interested in a peace deal, which is basically surrender for Ukraine. Now, I'll just wrap this up. So this is what's going to happen. If America abandons Ukraine, I don't think Europe is just going to go away. Putin will invade Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. His economy is on war footing right now. It's not in his best interest to suddenly stop his military-industrial complex. It's not in his favor. I don't think this will be a long-lasting peace. I was listening to General Ben Hodges, and he was saying Europe would need at least 2 to 3 years to build up its army and increase its production capacity. But Putin's economy is on war footing at the moment. So why would he wait until 2029 for Europe to become strong? Because even without America, if Europe realizes its true potential, there's no chance Russia can win. Europe has everything. The EU's economy is 11 times larger than that of Russia. Their population is 4 times bigger than that of Russia. So there is no way Russia can win. The only thing Russia has is probably the threat of nukes, which again, it's just been bluff and bluster. If Trump abandons Europe and Ukraine, then there's a very strong likelihood of Russia starting World War III. If history is anything to go by, I'm sorry, I don't want to risk the future of the world on Trump's gut feeling that I think Putin is serious. I don't think so. But there are some massive downsides to the United States as well. The US, who have always enjoyed this unwavering, undying, blind support of European countries, the US will lose it. If you want to pivot to China, you're going to have to do it all alone. Maybe you'll have the support of Japan, South Korea, and Australia, because obviously it's in our part of the world. But Europe will not join America in any adventure with China. Europe might actually get in bed with China. You will militarize Europe, and Europe could, within 5 years, create an army that could rival that of the US and China, and you'll have 3 superpowers now. So it's not as rosy as you might think. As I said, America reaped the rewards of being the only superpower or being the security guarantor of Europe. America had enormous political leverage, but Trump is just shaking up decades-long alliances. And I don't think that's good. So I hope this feud between Zelensky and Russia is only over some contractual details of Ukrainian minerals, and it will be over soon. I hope General Jack Keane is right that this will blow away within a week or so, because Trump is just trigger happy and he responds. If someone attacks him, as Zelensky attacked him by saying that Trump is living in his disinformation bubble, which I'm sorry, it seems that way, because everything that Trump is saying, Putin says that. His approval rating is 4%. There's absolutely not a single shred of evidence that says that. America has given $350 billion and America is being treated like a sucker. There's no evidence of $350 billion. Zelensky is a dictator. Zelensky needs to hold elections. You can't have election when millions of your people are living under occupation and other parts of your country are under constant attack by Russian missiles. You can't hold elections like that. You can't lift martial law and let Putin run wild with his disinformation campaigns, as he's done that in various European democracies like Romania, like America. He doesn't care about our internal topics, whether we sway to the woke side or we sway to the traditional side. He doesn't care about that. He just pits us against each other. And it's so easy to do that. You can just go through any social media platform and you can see. I can tell by the language whether that's some Russian bot or that's an ordinary American MAGA supporter. We can tell. And there's no way to stop it, unfortunately. I just hope that, because I like Trump, maybe that's why I'm saying that, I just hope that this will blow away and Trump will not abandon Ukraine and Europe, because if he does, then we're going to be living in a very different world. I'm saying that to all Americans who are just blindly following Trump on everything. Follow him on other issues, I'm with you. But on this issue, America will significantly lose its power on the world stage. And we will remember Donald Trump as the guy who ended America's reign as the only superpower of the world.